All right. So now we want to talk about loops. Now, the interesting thing about loops is that they're actually not very different from if statements. The only difference between loops and if statements is that at the end of the body, we kind of go to the beginning in a loop. So if you think of an if statement that looks like this, if a is less than 20, we do some things here. Let's say if body. If the condition is true, we're gonna do the if body and then we're gonna continue. In a loop, if the condition is true, we're gonna do the loop body and then we're gonna go to the beginning of the loop. So there's this kind of thing that takes us to the beginning of the loop. So if we have a while, then this of course would be the loop body. And at the end of the loop body, we would go to the beginning of here. So a loop is actually the same thing as an if statement, but with, again, some sort of go to the beginning. And this go to the beginning actually exists in C. You can have something that looks like this, L1, and you can say if A is less than 20, and you can do the body, and then you can say go to L1. You can actually do that. This is allowed in C. And this would make this if body, or this would make this code behave as a loop, because there's a condition, you execute the body, and then you go to the beginning, you go here, which is really the beginning of your code. So it would be the same. We're not going to be using this syntax, but the reason why I'm introducing this or even mentioning this is because we know how to convert if statements to MIPS. So converting while loops to MIPS should not be difficult, because you can make them an if with a go to, and then you can convert this to MIPS if you want. Now, you don't have to do it like this. You don't have to do, these two steps, but we're going to actually do it. Maybe it'll be easier for some to think of it like that at the beginning. I think after you practice, you really don't have to do that. You don't have to have this intermediate transformation. So this one is the same thing as this. And let's call this loop. So let's convert this one to MIPS. So converting this one to MIPS is going to be rather straightforward. So this loop label is going to be loop. We typically use uppercase in MIPS, so I'm going to just use uppercase, although we can use lowercase. And this one's going to be set less than, actually, let me do set less than immediate, T0. Let's use S0 here. S0, 20. And here we say if, or rather I want to branch on equal if T0 is equal to 0, and I want to go to after. And here's after. And then you want to have the body here, whatever that is. So whatever code you have here, hopefully there will be a line that's going to increment or decrement as 0. Otherwise, you're going to be in an infinite loop. But regardless of what the body is, this could be 1 line, could be 5 lines. We're going to translate that to MIPS. So body in C. And this one body in MIPS. And then the go to loop, anybody can guess what that gets translated to? It should be an easy question. Yeah, it would be jump to loop. Exactly. So you can just simply jump to loop. And that's it. You simply converted this while, and again, you can have many lines here, and that's fine. Those lines would be here. And you essentially have the MIPS code for this C code. So how about I open the simulator? I haven't actually done that in a while. Let me open the simulator and maybe we can just write some code there for a while like a while loop, and then we can do one for a for loop. All right, let me resume the share. Let me create a new workspace here and let me move this here. All right, let me write some code in C. Kind of int is 0, int is 0 equals to 10, while s0 is less than, let me say while s0 is less than 20. And here I'm going to just say, S1, let me do S1, and S1 equals to, let's say 0. And here I'm going to say S1 equals to S1 plus S0. And of course, I do want to increment S0 so that we, at some point, S0 is going to become 20, and 20 less than 20 is going to be false, and we can just exit the loop. Otherwise, again, it'll be an infinite loop. Okay, so let's convert this one to MIPS. And if you want to convert this one to for, we can actually do that. We can just say here there's a loop. And here we would have a go to loop, and that would be an if you want. So I'm going to actually just try to convert it to MIPS without having to think of this. Once you do it a few times, you really don't have to think of it like that. As long as you remember that at the end of this one, we typically go to the beginning of the loop, then that's it. You can just write code for it. So let me do these two lines. So that would be add immediate S0, 0, 10, add immediate S1, 0, 0. Now you can do this, or you can say add S1, 0, and then register 0. You can do that also. I'm going to just do add immediate. They're both the same, really. And here I'm going to have a loop label. I don't want to forget that. And I know that we're going to have a loop label because I'm going to be jumping to the beginning of the loop. At the end of it, I'm going to have a jump statement. So here I'm going to indent. Again, those indentations don't really matter. They're just, they improve readability. That's it. So here I'm going to say set less than immediate. Let me put it in T0, S0, 20. So if S0 is less than 20, there's going to be a 1 stored in this register. Otherwise, there's going to be a 0. So here I can say branch on equal. If T0 is equal to 0, I'm going to go to after. So I have an after here. Otherwise, we go sequentially. When we go sequentially, we need to do the loop body. So that would be, in this case, add S1, S1, S0. So this line corresponds to the line here. And then, of course, I need to do this line. So that would be, oh, I wrote this one in MIPS. It should be in C, of course. S0 equals to S0 minus plus 1. So here I would say add immediate S0, S0, 1. So that's going to increment S0. And then I'm going to have to jump to loop. And let me change those numbers to 5 so that we can trace it. And let's make this 5 and let's make this 10. So this one would be 10 here. Let me hide this one. Let me pause here for a few seconds before we run it. Just make sure that all of it makes sense. All right, so it seems that you don't have any questions about this, so we can try to run it. Let's assemble. Of course, the first two lines will give 5, 0 to S0, S1. So you can see S0 right now has 5, S1 has 0. And right now we're going to do set less than immediate S0, 10, and then we put the result in T0. So what should the value of T0 be? Can you tell me? When I execute this line, what should the value of T0 be? What should the value of T0 be when I execute this line? One. So that's correct, Anthony. That's correct because S0 is less than 10. So there should be 1 in T0. Let me show you here. You can see T0 contains the value 1. And then if T0 is equal to 0, I'm going to go to after. And because that's not the case, I'm going to go sequentially. So you can see here we're going sequentially. And I'm adding S0 to S1, putting it in S1. So you can see S1 right now is 5 because I'm adding 5 to 0, putting it in S1. And then I'm going to increment S0. So S0 is going to become 6. And you can see S0 became 6. And then jump loop is going to take me to the beginning of the loop. And here I'm going to check again. Is 6 less than 10? And the answer is going to be false. So T0 is going to contain the value, excuse me, the answer is going to be yes. So T0 is going to contain the value 1. And then is 1 equal to 0? No. So I'm going to go sequentially. I'm not going to branch to after. I'm going to add 6 to 5. So I end up with 11. And then I increment is 0. It becomes 7. You can see, excuse me, I increment. Oh, I think I went one step back by mistake. I increment, it becomes 7. That's right. And then we jump to the beginning. Is 7 less than 10? Yes. So we put 1 in T0. Is 1 equals to 0? No. So we don't go to after, we go sequentially. We're going to add 7 to 11. We end up with 18. And then I'm going to increment is 0 and it's going to become 8. And then I'm going to jump to the beginning. Is 8 less than 10? Yes. So we're going to put 1 in T0. Is 1 equals to 0? No. So we go sequentially. We don't branch to after. And right now I'm going to add, I believe, 8 to 18, right? So I'm going to add 8 to 18. So that's going to give me 26. That's right. And then I'm going to increment 8, or rather is 0 by 1. So it's going to have 9. And then I'm going to jump to the beginning. Is 9 less than 10? Yes. So we're going to have 1 in T0. Is 1 equal to 0? The answer is no. So we don't go to after, we go sequentially. And right now I'm going to add 9 to 26. So that's going to be 35. You can see there's 35 here. And then I'm going to increment is 0, and is 0 is going to become 10. Now this is interesting here because when we go to the beginning of the loop, we're going to ask the question, is 10 less than 10? And in this case, T0 is going to become 0 because that's false. So let's run this line and look at T0. You can see T0 right now is 0. And this one is saying if T0 is equal to 0, then we go to after. We essentially quit the loop. And when we do that, that's it. We end the program. Do you have any questions about this? All right. Were you able to run the code? Then maybe we have to look, we can look at it after class. But when you create a new file, typically you cannot assemble until you save it. So you should save the file and then you can assemble. But it seems that you have another problem maybe. So what Anthony proposed is what I thought would be the solution, but maybe in your case, you have to do something else. All right, so can I close this one? That's okay, I'll keep it. Okay. So what's going to happen with a for loop? Well, for loops are not very different than while. What you could do is you can convert a for to while, and then while to if, and then convert that to MIPS if you want. So let me show you how you can do that. And I'm sure that if you think about it for a few minutes, all of it will make sense. So here we have, let's say, for example, int is 0, 4, is 0 is equal to 0, is 0 is less than 5, is 0 plus plus. And here you say, for example, int s1 equals to 5, s1 equals to s1 plus s0, and that's it. Let's say that's what you have. Now, this is the same thing, if you think about it, the same thing as doing the following. You can replace this 4 with a while, and you would take this increment portion and you would put it at the end of the body. So s0 is equal to s0 plus 1. And this s0 equals to 0 goes before the while. And this one becomes the condition. So again, this one goes before the while. This one goes at the end of the loop body. And this one becomes a condition. Now you can actually keep this one s0 plus plus. That's okay, that's allowed. Now I did say that we want to try to prevent, or rather avoid using plus plus unless we're in the 4. And because of that, I don't want to use plus plus. I want to use s0 equals to s0 plus 1. But in this particular case, it would work. All right, so I'm going to give you a question here, and I want you to think about it for a few minutes because I think you get the idea, and we can convert this one to MIPS, but I want you to try, we can convert this, something that looks like this, to MIPS, but I do want you to try and give me your answer, and then we can look at it and change it if needed. I'm going to make this one is 0 greater than 5 or greater than 0, and let's do minus minus. And here I'm just going to say body. I'm going to say loop body. So look at this, and we don't need this one. Oh, so here, yeah, this is all fine. This is all, yeah, this is all good. So I'm gonna do int s0 here. And let me start with 5. Okay, that looks good. That looks good. So let me give you 2 minutes. I'm gonna have a timer here, and I'm gonna pause the recording. And I want you to think of come up with a solution to this one. All right, let me pause the recording, and I'm gonna give you 2 minutes. Yeah, I think, okay, so now we're resuming the sharing. Let me copy the answer. And the answer is not quite right, but it's very close. So this is the answer. So what we're doing here is we're putting 5. Well, this is not how we put 5 in as 0 at the beginning. So if you want to put 5 in as 0, you need to say 0. So you need to add 5 to 0 and put it in as 0. You don't want to forget that. And then you want to say set less than, well, this is really not correct. What does that mean? Set less than immediate. If 0 is less than 0, put the value in 0. So this is not quite right. And this is not quite right. This line is not very good. And you don't want to forget that the loop should happen before set less than immediate, because when you go to the loop, you want to make sure that you check this condition. So it's a good attempt. It's a good attempt, but not quite right. And you would have to use, okay, so let's try to fix it. Okay, let's try to fix it. I think I can see there's another answer by another student, which might be correct, but I think what we should do is we should try to fix this, and then we can look at the other answer by the other student. So, okay, so I think we're kind of working together right now. Katie's making a suggestion. Grace is agreeing with her. Anthony, I think, yeah, I think the answer provided by Anthony is I think we can look at it after. It might be actually completely correct, but let's kind of try to. I'm looking at the chat window, and I'm gonna try to listen to what you're suggesting and make those suggestions. So one suggestion was to use T0 here and S0 here, and then 0 here. Okay. Okay, that's one suggestion. But then there's a problem here. So the loop, I don't know if there's a suggestion to take the loop up, but that's maybe my suggestion. So let me do that. Let me take the loop here. Okay, so we put 5 in S0. We say is 0 less than 0? And then we say branch on equal. Well, this is not the correct syntax. Yeah, I think maybe you were rushing when you did that. But this is not the correct syntax, right? That's not what you wanted to do. What did you want to do? This is not the right syntax. Okay, so I'm not hearing any more suggestions. So what I'm gonna do, so when T0 is equal to 0, so you want to branch to after maybe, but then there's a problem here. You're not really branching the right way. And of course the loop body, all right, so I'm gonna do something that I typically don't do, but I'm gonna essentially abandon this solution, because this is it has a lot of things that we need to fix, and I'm gonna abandon it. And I apologize if that is gonna hurt your feelings, but I think we should start from scratch. And I'm gonna take the other solution and see if it's better. Now the other solution is kind of changing S0 and starting with 0 instead of 5, which I kind of don't like. So this solution is not really the correct solution. So of course we can try to correct it, or we can start from scratch. How about we start from scratch, and then you tell me if that makes sense and if you want me to try something else. So we have to do add immediate is 0, 0, 5. So we have to do that because this is what we have here. Now, after that, we have to start the loop. And typically we should have a set less than, and then branch on equal or branch not equal. So we would have a set less than or set less than immediate. And we would have a branch on equal or branch on not equal. And then at the end, we would have to jump to loop. So these are the things that we know we have to do. And we should have an after right after that. And of course, there is this decrement which happens at the end of the loop body. And all of that is really the loop body. Those three lines are the loop body. So maybe we should put it at the end. We can say add immediate is 0, -1. That's how we subtract. Now, what kind of threw you off, or what threw some of you off, is the fact that here we have a greater than, not less than, and we have an immediate. So I told you that we don't have an instruction for greater than. So instead of thinking of this as is 0 greater than 0, you can think of it as 0 less than is 0. So I'm just essentially swapping. So again, what I'm doing here is if A is less than B, it's the same thing as saying B is greater than A. And initially, we had is 0 greater than 0. And right now I'm going to make it 0 less than is 0. Is that good so far? Give me thumbs up if that makes sense so far. Okay. Now, right now we have another problem, which is we have a 0 here. So we have a 0 and then we have a register. So we cannot use set less than immediate or even set less than. In fact, we can use set less than, which is actually interesting. In this case, we can because we can use the register 0. That's actually interesting. I didn't want to do that, but because this is a 0, we can use the register 0. So here we can say set less than, and we can put the result in T0, and then we can say 0, and then we can say S0. So if 0 is less than S0, then put 1 in T0. Otherwise, put 0 in T0. So here, of course, we can say branch on equal. If T0 is equal to 0, then I'm going to go to after. We've done that. Otherwise, we go sequentially, and this is really the loop body. And of course, after the loop body, it has to be part of the loop body. So this is the kind of original loop body. And I'm going to say original loop body here. And then, of course, we decrement, and then we jump to the beginning. And that's the correct answer. Think about that for a minute and see if you have any questions. All right. So if this was not a 0, if what we started with was something like S0 greater than 5, then of course when you make it something less than S0, it would be 5. And in this case, you would have to put 5 in a register. So in this case, if you end up with something that looks like this, then you can put 5 in a register, say for example T0 or T1, and then you can use set less than T0 or T1, and then you put S0. In my example, we kind of got lucky because I had 0 here, and we don't have to put 0 in a register because we know there's a register that contains the value 0, and it'll always contain the value 0, and that would be register 0. But if I had put another number, then you can simply put it in that register, in a register, and change this line. All right, do you have any questions before we end the recording? All right. All right. Thank you so much for, again, attending those Zoom sessions. And I'm going to post the recording on YouTube, and I will hopefully talk to you tomorrow.